Episode 288 of the Mighty Whites podcast. I'm Jack, as always, joined by Casey.
Hello.
How's things, mate?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, really good. It was one of them games that if we wouldn't have had the late goal, I think it'd have stuck with me until at least the Luton game, and I wouldn't have felt as good.
No, it was. I think you can at least describe it as a topsy-turvy game.
Yeah, I resisted putting Ding Dong Battle in the title of the podcast, but I did think about it. Yeah, we'll just get straight into the game, and with it being so out there, we're probably best off just being chronological. Leeds Leeds started okay, but not great. It was a bit scrappy early on, and then Altanaka gives away a free kick, but I think that's a harsh sentence because it wasn't a foul.
No, I totally agree with you. It just wasn't a free kick at all.
Yeah, there was absolutely nothing in it. But as annoying as that is, you can't defend a free kick like this. So Swansea swung it in. It was Matt Grimes, unfortunately, with the free kick. Good ball in, and Harry Darling comes in at the far post, and there's no one near him. Having seen it back, it looks like Roden isn't like great in terms of his positioning, but it's Tanaka that he runs straight past, who just doesn't react. And I do feel like going, well, Tanaka shouldn't really be marking Harry Darling at a set piece. And that's true. And if Harry Darling had got up in the air and won a towering header, I'd be saying, well, he shouldn't be marking him. But if he volleys it away knee high, then it's not to do with his size. It's just that he completely switched off.
Yeah, the slow motion replay of it really makes him look rather foolish in as much as Harry Darling's run out of the frame, and then Tanaka has a moment of going, "Oh God, yeah, right, he's mine." Oh,
yeah. And he finishes it quite well. There's no real chance for Melier. That was sort of Tanaka's opening 10 minutes, where he gave the ball away a couple of times, which is unlike him. He was a little bit scrappy. He then, for the rest of the game, was absolutely fucking outstanding. Like, he was absolutely... I think he had a point to prove. Leeds sort of got back into it. It was an annoying goal to concede. But you're like, well, go from a set piece. If we get back into it quickly enough, it's not the end of the world. And we did sort of get back into it quickly enough. It was about 10 minutes later. Leeds win the ball back in the middle of the pitch. Pascal Struijk plays an excellent ball to put Dan James through in the right channel. It's gone a little bit undermentioned from what I've seen, just how good that pass is. It's a centre-back on his weak foot. It's a really good ball to put Dan James through. He sprints away in behind, and both good decision-making and really good execution to give Mano Solomon just a tap in. The finish is nothing, but the thing that Solomon does really well with is staying on side. He manages to hold his run just long enough so that Dan James can get ahead of him. When you watch it back on that side-on angle, you can tell that he's actually paying attention, which was good because Mano Solomon is really bad for getting caught offside needlessly. He's done it in loads of games, and he did it in this one as well. But for that one, he timed it perfectly.
Yeah, and I think it's really good awareness from Dan James for that. I think once he's taken that touch, you probably could have had an argument for him having a shot across goal. But yeah, the spot for Solomon, and then, like you say, he times his run perfectly. I think as well that this was kind of the story going for Swansea's back four, in as much as for each one of our goals, there seemed to be one of them massively out of position in some regard.
I think it's got like this one. Struijk won the ball when they're in possession. Key and Timon, at least one of them, often both, invert into middle of midfield. And it just leaves so much space for the wingers. And they do this every game, but not every game do you have someone as quick as Dan James who can exploit it. Like, Swansea looked a lot better than they did when we played them last season at their place, when Luke Williams had only been there like a week or something, where they had all the downsides of this high line and none of the upsides. in this game, I thought they actually played the ball out from the back pretty well. I thought that they looked pretty decent in possession. They had a lot more of the upsides, but they still had the huge downside of just being so susceptible to the break, and we are set up perfectly for it. I mean, if we'd have had someone with enough as much pace as Joseph instead of Peru, I think it might have been even worse for them.
Potentially, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I fully understand, especially playing at home, you kind of taking chances, but yeah, that is kind of the risk that when you lose possession in areas like that, around the halfway line, that all of a sudden your wing backs are 10 yards out of position.
Yeah.
And especially I could have understood it more if it was on their right hand side, taking those chances when it's Dan James that you're up against. I'd have probably been a bit more conservative on that side just for the pace alone.
Yeah, I think that they want Josh Tymon to be the one to invert because he's a technically very good player, as we saw with the late equaliser. He's really good on the ball, so I think they try to make most of that. And to be fair, if I was Luke Williams, I think I'd be like, if I was a Swansea fan, I wouldn't be annoyed at Luke Williams at all for this game, because what were their options really? To play their way and they got beat 4-3 in the last minute, or to try and sit back and be defensive like everyone else does, and they'd have probably got beat anyway. It's a bit like, when we were going for it under Bielsa, you go, well, we went for it and we got beat. If we'd have sat back, we'd have got beat.
Yeah.
I would say, if I was in Swansea's position, I'd rather have a go.
Yeah, I think kind of looking at their goals, because I think 9 on each goal, you could have sat there and gone, that probably could have gone to a VAR offside check if we were in the Premier League. So it was just that one was the opposite one, in as much as that was the fullback's been quite high up the pitch. I think with the other goals, for the most part, there's someone who seems to be always about a yard or two behind the rest of the defensive line, just playing people on.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll come to the worst example of that at the end, I suppose. But Leeds did go in 2-1 down. Ball just played forward. And Strauch, who overall had a really good game and played a couple of key passes, did make a bit of a bollocks of this. He sort of lost the bounce of the ball and lost it, which allowed Swansea to break. They got him down the right, played it into Cullen. It's not a good shot, although the way it trickles in at that end of Swansea Stadium does make you think of Pablo Hernandez. But this was a weaker shot, and the deflection off Bogle takes it in off the post. The thing to talk about with this is, to what extent is this one on Meslier? Because the opinions I have seen online vary from Meslier handled it perfectly and there's nothing he could have done no matter whatever, to this was as bad as what he did away at Sunderland in the last minute. Of course, neither of those are true, but that's what the variance is.
I think for me, it's not really down to Meslier. I think for Meslier, it's unlucky with the deflection. One, it's taken it as far across his goal as it can while still going in.
Yeah.
And also, as the shot is hit, Meslier gets his feet planted, and I think he's expecting to go down to that side, but more of a collapse than probably having to chuck himself across his goal.
Well, I mean, without the deflection, he might not have even had to dive.
Yeah. So I think when he then is scrambling across his goal, it's because he's got no push there. Like, he's got his feet set for a shot that he is expecting to go a lot closer to him, and I think he just doesn't have the power in his legs to get across his goal. But I wouldn't have said that was on him. I think for me, ultimately, you can kind of look at Strauch doesn't deal with it well, and there's probably somewhere in there.
That's the thing that I was going to mention. Just after Strauch loses the ball, as they're breaking away down the right, Byram is right next to him. And it's a perfect, just grab him.
Take the yellow.
Just grab him, pull him back, yellow card.
That might not have been a yellow in that first half, to be fair. That was...
Yeah, it was such an eventful game that I didn't mention Harry Darling just clearing out Dan James for what was at least a yellow. And
There is. I don't think it. I don't think it was. But there was probably an argument about whether it was a goal scoring opportunity he was denying him.
Yeah, you could argue it, but I don't think you would. Like, I agree with it. It's a yellow.
It's
but
certainly.
Not quite.
It's certainly a legitimate attempt to play. I just don't think he sees Dan James coming. He goes to play the ball, and Dan James just nips it ahead of him.
I see. That's what it is. I think he does see him coming, but only right at the last second, and that's why he panics and just goes, I got fouled.
Yeah. But yeah, the first half, the referee seemed very unwilling to give a yellow card.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you say, Byram probably should have just grabbed the shirt, taken the yellow card, and we'd have conceded from a free kick on the other side. It's fine.
Yeah. As for Melly himself on that, I'm sort of with you. I don't put this one on him. There is an angle from behind which shows Melier is too slow to get across when the ball comes across. He has left too much space at that side. But the truth is, if he has got across to the middle, he probably ends up not diving at all for that shot because he's ready, and then the deflection happens. So I do think it was mostly a bit unlucky. Like, don't get me wrong, Melier's shot stopping has been god awful, and people wanting him dropped, I have no arguments with him really, other than our second choice goalkeeper is Carl Darlow, and I don't think he's any better. In fact, I think he's a bit worse. But like, this isn't a defence of Melier overall. It is a defence of Melier on that one goal. I don't think it's particularly on him. But yeah, Leeds going 2-1 down. If it was kind of an moment, because it didn't feel like a game where we should have been 2-1 down, but we haven't been great either. But came out and it was more the same. And luckily, and it always helps. It didn't take too long for us to get the goal. 10 minutes into the second half, Tanaka wins the ball really well in midfield, and I reckon sat in the pub, we probably said that once every 3 minutes. Because after that first 10 minutes, he just won everything. He finds Roden onto Bogle. Bogle with a good through ball for Dan James. Again, racing across. Again, takes his time, makes the right decision. It's a really good ball across. Piru's got a tap in, and Ben Cabango throws himself at it and slides it into his own net. If Cabango doesn't do that, Piru has a tap in. It was I put on our Twitter, think Mark Venus Leeds against Ipswich in what will that be in 2001, 2?
Yeah.
I think it was that Australian prick that put the cross in. It's a tap in, and although that doesn't go down as a Dan James assist officially, it is one. Like, he has created a goal there. I was really pleased to see, because Dan James last season, we got a run of Dan James with good decision making, and he was getting a goal or an assist basically every game. And we haven't quite had that to the same extent this season, but this was a lot more like it for him today. It was a team played into his hands a bit, but he made the absolute most of it.
Yeah, I think certainly for that one is to go into cricketing parlance. He's put that into the corridor of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And like you say,
I think football has officially nicked that with any cross between the centre backs and the goalkeeper.
Yeah, it's one of those. He's got it in behind the centre back who at that point has got a decision to make, and very difficult to adjust going that way and not put it somewhat close to your goal.
I mean, I don't. It's just one of them. He's unlucky as Cabango, to be honest. He does nothing wrong.
Yeah. I mean, there is part of me thinks it might have been somewhat unjust if Joel Piru would have come out of that game with a goal, having done not a whole lot. But we'll discuss Manor Solomon later.
I know that Solomon didn't play as well as scoring 2 goals suggests, but Solomon was a lot better than Piru. Piru was pretty anonymous in this game, but it wasn't awful. It was just really quiet. But yeah, the Leeds then go 3-2 up. The reason why I can't get annoyed at Strouk for being a bit sloppy on the second goal, this is another fantastic ball from Strouk. Over the top for Sam Byram, who has, 40 yards of space?
So much room.
Like, I know that we've all taken the piss, and we'll do it again for the last goal, at Swansea fans going mental, thinking everything was offside when it wasn't. But if you're watching a team, you would think, well, he must be offside because we can't be defending this badly. But they were. Byron, again, the thing that it took his time. Didn't panic. I mean, to be honest, he would have had time to go inside and shoot himself because he had that much room. But I'd rather he passed it. He's not known for his finishing. As good as that goal against Oxford when he was like 19 was. Squares it across and Solomon finishes it. This one, although it's a similar type of goal, just getting it straight in front of the goal, this is a much better finish. The other one was a tap-in. This one, he did still have to beat the keeper. Puts it up and in off the bar. Good finish. But yeah, another really good goal. Again, exploiting the space in behind the fullback who's got caught high and a bit inside.
Yeah. It was a nicely taken finish as well, into the roof of the net. Yeah, like you say, it was. Because I think by the time we get to the fourth goal as well, you're just looking, going, this is happening for every goal now.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was just given that much time there. And again, that's then leaving the centre backs with the choice of do they stay with the men in the middle? Do they go close it down? And I think in this case, he was a bit damned either way. And yeah, like I say, Solomon just takes it really calmly.
Yeah, and now probably because he got subbed immediately after this goal. So now probably is the time to talk about Solomon. Other than his debut, this was probably his best game. And obviously scoring 2 goals means that, I mean, you can be, like, and this is, if you're shit and score 2 goals, that's 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like, and he wasn't shit. It was fine to good and scored 2 goals. I would say probably mostly fine. But I'm hoping that will give him a bit of confidence. Because he has seemed to be, like, refusing to beat a man, just cutting back and playing the ball inside. Or beating a man and then going back to try and do it again rather than making the most of the opportunity. I'm hoping getting a couple of goals might get him a bit of confidence and make him a bit more decisive in the final third.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part as well, and this is purely down to pace. I think more times than not, we were probably looking for Dan James in this game, which is something of a change for us because the last 18 months has been everything goes down that get it left. But yeah,
they say that the world follows what America does, and it's switching from the left.
But yeah, in a game like this again, where we said you're going to have your wing backs are going to be pushing up fairly quickly. The person you're going to want to look for in those situations is someone like Dan James, who has the pace to just get away straight away. So yeah, like you said, there wasn't a massive amount went through Solomon, but I suppose in the times when he was needed, he did what he had to do.
Yeah, I mean, he did well, and I would assume that he'll keep. But unless there's something fitness-wise, which there always is a chance of with Solomon, you would assume he stays in. Yeah, Leeds also then brought on Mateo Joseph for Joe Peru, who, to be fair, wasn't any better.
Continued in the vein of Joe Peru.
Yeah, like he didn't seem to be like tear-assing after the ball much, did he? And he didn't seem to be sprinting around in the way that he can. Except for right at the end where he basically gave himself an open goal and then didn't shoot.
Yeah.
Which was weird. But yeah, like there was no real difference there. And then 84th minute, Verba came on for Byram and Gilvogi came on for Joe Rothwell. And Leeds sort of stopped trying to break as much, which, and I mean, it's not the first time this has happened, sort of invited pressure. And then Swansea in the 90th minute get an equaliser. There's one thing that I think we did wrong. Leeds didn't get someone out to actually put pressure on Josh Tymon's cross. But the actual ball itself is an excellent cross. And I think, yeah, Bianchini gets in between our defenders a bit too easily. But I don't think there's particularly wrong with the defending. I think more than out, it's a really good cross.
Yeah, I wasn't sure with that whether if it's a touch harsh thinking that Joe Rodon should take charge a bit more there. As soon as that goal goes in, he has one of his moments of kind of looking at about 4 different people, having a bit of a whinge, and I wasn't sure if ultimately that is a situation where he probably needs to take a bit more control of it there. Like you say, it's good work to move in between the defenders like that. Because again, I think Rodon had a bit of a look at Meslier there. It's like, why are you not coming for that? It's like, because it's dropping right in between 2 centre backs. Of course, I'm not coming for this.
I don't think he could have come for that. I mean, the ball only beats Meslier by that far, but he's no time to react. Obviously, it's really frustrating to concede a goal like that, but I was more erring on the side of a good goal from Swansea. But the good, you need games like this. If you're going to get promoted, you need big moments.
Ipswich games.
Yeah, basically, you need to do like this. And it was quite good because they just added 6 minutes on. The Swansea crowd really gets up. And it has that feeling of, if one of the teams is going to go on to win it, like it's going to be the home team. We've got the fans behind them. Here we go. And Leeds, Verba wins the ball back with an interception, finds Nonto, flicks it onto Tanaka, breaks away down the left, plays a pass that I think was for Aronson, but it's behind him. Dan James picks it up. Really good through ball for Nonto. Takes his time. Again, that's just like they didn't panic in key situations, which I think we do have a tendency to do sometimes. Just took his time, nutmegs the keeper. Absolute bedlam in the stands. Not absolute bedlam in the pub where we were watching it because we all were absolutely sure he was offside.
Yeah,
and then it took about 5 seconds for us to go, he hasn't given offside.
Yeah, you just sort of stood there going, well, again, he's in so much space in the penalty area.
Yeah.
Like, surely, and yeah, he just sort of sat there going, well, this'll get pulled back.
Yeah, the flag's up, they just haven't shown it on camera yet.
And then the celebration just kept going.
Yeah, and it shows it again. And Harry Darling is 4 yards behind the rest of his defence. He's not just onside, he's onside by a yard or so. It's not even particularly close. I'm going to say this because it doesn't come up very often. Fair fucks to the linesman. Because it would have been very easy with it being at Swansea's ground to go with the fans there. It would have been really easy to just put your flag up and stuck to the guns, got the decisions right. It was quite funny hearing Swansea fans singing "You're not fit to referee" about some offside decisions, like it's the referee that gives them. 2, at correct decisions. 3, there's only one goal in this game that came from a bad refereeing decision. It was Swansea's opener.
Yeah.
But I that exact game reversed at Elland Road. I'm sure I'd walk out of Elland Road thinking that we've got screwed, and it would only be when I went on Twitter later on. Actually. But no, obviously, the only person who I even heard suggest that Nonto might not start this game was you, Casey. And you were right. Nice option to have off the bench.
Yeah, really worked out. I think it's definitely something Nonto needed that goal. Because I think he has gone a bit quiet the last few weeks. So I think I'm hoping it'll do his confidence the world of good to get that. I think there's a very good chance he still comes in midweek as we'll get to. Or I think he starts one of the next 2 anyway. But you're looking at that bench, and I know Ramazani was probably there more of a break glass in case of emergency.
Yeah.
But we're getting back to a point where, again, if you've got Nonto, Ramazani, James, and Solomon to choose from, very good options to have.
Yeah, there's going to be no big issues having those as your 4 wingers. on the subject of tomorrow night against Luton, because Solomon's got 2, I think he'll need to stay in. Dan James got 3 assists. So, provided the fitness is fine, we need to stay in. But Farker did specify in his press conference, 1, 3 games in a week is likely to see some rotation, and he specifically mentioned the wingers for that. So it might be that he just brings in Nonto for Solomon anyway. What I wouldn't mind seeing, because I didn't think Aronson had much of a game, is Nonto for Aronson.
No. Joel Peru.
Yeah, I know that I say it a lot, but I do like the idea of Nonto at 10. Especially with Luton always play a back 3. So you could sort of play a front 2 with one of them as Nonto.
Yeah.
Having really up there. And I think that could be very useful against their defence. And lastly, a little shout out to James DeBayo. Come on for the last couple of minutes to see it out. Always nice to see him get a debut. Sky Man at Match went to Tanaka. And I say after that 10 minutes, he was brilliant. But personally, I thought Dan James.
I think it's those 2, isn't it? Like those are the 2 you're probably having the conversation about. I thought James was probably the bigger threat of probably the biggest threat of any of the attacking players, to be fair. But yeah, after that first 10 minutes, Tanaka was just everywhere. I thought it was probably a quieter game for Rothwell than he's had in a few weeks, but I don't know if that's just because Tanaka took it upon himself to just do everything to make up for his earlier error and just thought, well, I best run midfield now.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. But yeah, overall, it's not a great. Obviously, you concede 3 goals, so there's definitely stuff to work on. But overall, like, we were the better side. We did deserve to win the game. It just happened in a much more stressful way than you'd like. But we have been talking about a lack of jeopardy and how other teams come and sit back, and it can be a bit boring to watch. So it was nice to have a game like this.
Yeah, like you say, it was. I think you described it entirely what they were going to do before the game, and
I described the style, but what was the one thing that I was sure of?
Well,
low scoring, fairly. I thought they'd have loads of the ball, and then we'd have loads of the ball back and forth, but there would be spacing behind the fullbacks. That was the one that I was right about. But I expected this to be. I mean, I think I went 2-0 because I thought we'd go 1-0 up, and then when they went for it at the end, we'd nick one. I did not see a high scoring game like this coming at all.
Yeah, Swansea fans have rarely seen a high scoring game like this.
Yeah.
It's got to hurt scoring 3 at home, not winning.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where ultimately, like, I didn't think Swansea created a lot generally in open play. Ultimately, first goal's a set piece. Second goal is a defensive error, and the third is a lack of closing down.
Yeah. They didn't miss a load of chances, did they?
No, I thought that it's probably the same for both teams in terms of the chances that they actually had.
We had 4 shots on target.
Yeah,
and we scored 4 goals.
Well, strictly speaking, we scored 3 of those.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah.
But yeah, and it was more a case of both teams took big chances when they came along.
Yeah, I think the other shot on target, it was Dan James had that left-footed one along the ground that sort of got cleared off the line.
Yeah,
I think that's the other one because I just checked and their goalkeeper didn't make any saves, so it must be that one that's the other one. They had 5 shots on target. It was sort of 9 shots to 8 in our favour. But we did have more of the pressure, like touches in the box. Swansea had 9, we had 26. Swansea did end up having 57% of the ball, which doesn't shock me that much. That was something that we did mention before, and that would actually probably help us. But yeah, it was a good game to watch. I dare say that the neutrals will have loved it. Put it that way. It was a good game.
Yeah, I think looking as well, because I think they put together more passes than us as well, and I don't know if that's a sign of them looking to pass their way up the field. Whereas I think because of the spaces that were left, we were looking more often for those passes in behind the fullbacks.
Yeah. We weren't hitting like long diagonals, but we did look like we were playing it a bit quicker than usual.
Yeah, I think it was more a case of getting to the halfway line and then sort of looking for those passes into the wide areas and sort of moving the ball 20, 25 yards from there. But yeah, I think that's, and it was the same for us. I think it probably ends up being the same for most teams that are sort of challenging to win the league in the Championship, is that whenever you get to play a team that isn't just putting bodies behind the ball and trying to close space off, even if it is something of a nerve-wracking game score-wise, it's quite nice to actually have the space to be able to play how we like to play. As opposed to, we will have 60% possession and a load of shots from distance and 3 on target and not really many big opportunities. It was quite nice to watch an open game that I think actually flowed pretty well as well. As much as I thought the referee probably should have given a few yellow cards, I thought the game for the most part flowed pretty well. It is. I think it's one of those that they would describe as being a good advert for the Championship.
Yeah. I will just mention this because I've had a comment off Ali that I'm just saying I'm still getting used to this system. I still don't like Fark's idea of when we go ahead, sit back and defend. It doesn't suit us. Yeah, I agree. I think that you don't have to go balls to the wall trying to go after them. But I think us maintaining a threat is more important. And switching to Verba and Giavogi didn't seem to help. But in the end, it was all good. Obviously, we said that was really open and really quite flowing. I don't think this one will be as much. Luton at home tomorrow night. Luton are 16th in the league, 18 points from 16 games. I still look at that squad and I'm not sure how they've been that poor. I've seen some of. I haven't seen much of them in full. To be fair, they're still playing a 3-5-2, and from a quick flick through their fixtures, it depends who they're playing. Sometimes it's sort of 3 centre mids, one of them really deep, and they sit. Sometimes the centre mid is more of a 10 and pushes on. You would assume that they'll go with the more defensive setup for this one, just given recent form. Thomas Kaminski, I've always said he's a really good goalkeeper because I think of him at Blackburn and being really good. But someone flashed up the stats basically to show how bad Meslier is against his post-shot XG. And Thomas Kaminski was right down there with him. So it appears that he hasn't been in great nick. Back 3, probably Ted and Mengi, the ex-Scum one, and plays for me at Serta on Football Manager. Amari Bell, left centre-back. And Mark McGuinness. Mark McGuinness I know less about, again, other than I've had him on FM, so I know he's an Irish centre-back. But I know that he scored the winner against Hull. It's about that. Look, 2 of the 3 I know to be decent centre-backs. I don't know much about McGuinness. Alfie Doughty, who's probably technically their best player, is a big doubt and didn't play the last game. That could be big for us because his delivery both from open play and set pieces is really good. It looks like they're expecting it to be Chong at left wing back to replace him.
Yeah, I found it interesting at the start of the season, them playing him as one of their wing backs. I didn't think it quite suited them. I mean, I can't say I've seen a lot of Luton this season, but obviously they kind of had the big loss for them was Ross Barkley, who, after having, we'll say, career renaissance.
Yeah, that's really the only major player that they lost, isn't it? is Ross Barkley, which was weird to see. Apologies if I keep having to mute, by the way. My daughter's just come home from nursery.
Oh, fair.
So it will be. I might have to do it a fair bit.
Yeah, just, you look through that squad and sort of the reason why I thought they would be strong contenders for going up automatically was they kept the majority of that squad together that have been promoted from this division already. I like the football they play. That they're adventurous but still well organized, and it just hasn't got going for them this season yet. Like they've won a few of the games that they probably should have won in the last couple of weeks. In terms of the teams that are now down there. And I'm sure one day when we actually play Hull is when I will have to start looking back at my predictions at the start of the season and where Hull would be, because that's a potential Sunderland for me at this rate. But yeah, it's one of those things where I because I like Rob Edwards, I really hope it works out for him and he can turn it around, because I thought after what he'd done to get the Watford job, then Watford doing what Watford do with managers, and then him getting into Luton, getting them promoted, getting them and turning them into this. Also, what went to the Premier League, I was really, really happy for him.
He did a great job, didn't he?
And I think and one of the things I'll say as well is when you look at how they took on the Premier League compared to Burnley and Sheffield United, was that I think they were very realistic about their approach to it. There wasn't the Burnley naivety of, no, we're just going to keep playing the way we were with this squad and it will probably be fine. And it wasn't. Whereas Luton, I think Luton went to win games, but in a very reasonable manner. And even the games they were losing, they were always in those games.
Yeah, but I will say that I think Luton's style in the Championship was a lot easier to replicate than Burnley's probably was.
Yeah, I think it probably was, but is there not then the argument of you've then got to be realistic about what you have as a squad and your resources, and then think, well, all right, we need to change plan this summer. Whereas, as you say, Luton came up with a style they were able to carry forward, and I think there probably was a certain pragmatism to it of, look, this is the squad. This is probably the best squad we can assemble. It likely will be in a relegation battle, but we will play a style of football that will create chances and will allow us to get the ball forward, but and will keep us in games whilst not being too open and conceding stupid or losing by stupid amounts of goals. Because I know there were a few high-scoring games in there, but you look at their performance against Arsenal, was it a 4-3 or something like that at home? And but it was the fact that I think out of anyone in of those three, they were the ones that actually competed.
Yeah, when you look at their sort of level of squad on paper, they did, I reckon, as well as anyone could have expected them to do. But that's why I thought, apologies that she's not very well, isn't my little girl, so I'm going to have to cut this short. So she was meant to be there. She was meant to be at nursery for another few hours, but she hasn't been very well. I'll be with you in a second, Ava. They didn't do as great. I do think Marvelous Nakambu in middle of midfield, as well as having, just about the best name in football. He's a pretty good player. I don't know much about Tom Krause, who plays in there with him. Victor Moses, name from the past, still play right wing back. I don't know how he's been, because I know he scored a goal from the other week, but he's been away in Russia for years, so no idea. And then, but up top, Carlton Morris and Elijah Adebayo. They're not just good strikers. They're good strikers that are both tall and powerful and can run in behind well. And one of our strengths is that Roden and Strauch don't get forced back very easily. And if two strikers are set to be able to do that, these have a better chance than most.
Yeah, I think they're very much strikers Leeds fans can admire as well, in as much as very hard-working centre forwards. It's like you say, you kind of look through that, and it really feels like they should have just been able to kind of carry on where they'd left off, but for whatever reason, it's not quite clicked for them. But I know you mentioned there Moses coming in, who will probably do a job for the season. He's 33 now. But yeah, Adebayo and Morris are certainly two players who can cause problems, do put in a lot of running, very strong, very physical. And when they hold up, and when they're able to hold the ball up, they do a very good job of bringing others into the game as well. I thought last season was a big season for Chong, in as much as that was kind of a bit of a breakout for him. So if you're him, you'd be hoping to have another big season to kind of follow up on
that. Yeah, but she's really upset. It's my little girl, so I'm going to have to call it now. Apologies to everyone. We'll just get into the predictions and just quick things. What do you think might change about the Leeds team from Sunday?
I can still see Dan James dropping out of this one. Like it's one of those where I think it's a very difficult decision, but I could well see him. I could see him dropping out. Have we got another game of Firpo suspended, or is Firpo back now?
There's one more game of Firpo suspension, because it was the last game before the break, and obviously that was the first one.
Yeah.
So this will be the last turn. So I think Byron will play this, and then just definitely won't play at Blackburn.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me if Byron plays an hour, and then Verba plays half an hour.
Yeah, and I think we're back to flipping a coin territory for Peru and Joseph at the moment.
Yeah, I'll take a shot that I think this time it'll be Joseph, but I think that it is one of them where it's more just going for it. I do. If there was again, it's a bit like you mentioned with the last game, with them playing free at the back. If there was going to be a Peru at 10 game, this might be one of them, but I don't think he'll go for that. I would like to see Nonto play 10, but I don't think that'll happen. I think if one of Solomon or James is to drop out, even though he scored twice, I think it'll be Solomon, because he's not that long back from injury.
Yeah.
He's got a bit of history with it, so I don't know how his fitness will be for playing Sunday, Wednesday, and try to play right through. I can't see anything else changing too much. It'll still be Rothwell and Tanaka, still be Roden and Strauch, still be Bogle. But yeah, I'll be interested to see. I would expect a couple of changes, but I'm not sure which, to be honest. I'll take a shot that it'll be James, Aronson, Nonto, Joseph.
I'm going Solomon and Nonto on the wings for this one, and Solomon drops out at Blackburn.
Cool. Benny and Connie have gone for 3-0 wins. Alex has gone for 3-1. Obviously, everyone except you got 2 points for the last one, because you were the pessimist for Swansea. But this one, I definitely think Luton will score. I think they've got a good enough front two that they'll get something. I'm going to say 3. I'm going to say 2-1 Leeds.
I will go 2-0 Leeds.
2-0 Leeds. Cool. Well, that's all of us going for a win, so you know the rules. Get your mortgage on Luton or draw. But yeah, that will do us for the podcast. We will be back one of Thursday or Friday. Probably Thursday, because you can't. Friday's a bit of a struggle for you, isn't it, time-wise?
Yeah, I think probably this week, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, we'll. I think I'm done at work at a reasonable time Thursday, so Thursday's probably his best bet. But yeah, that will do us for episode 288 of the Mighty Lights podcast.